Hello everyone, welcome back to an episode of Faces of Semmelweis. Today we're very honored to have a very special guest with us. She is someone that many of us we admire for her hard work, dedication, and passion she has given us as students at the health science faculty. Her name is physiotherapist Anna Kubik.
Well, thank you, Jose. It was a very heartwarming welcome. So I'm a physiotherapist, as you already said, and I was born in the eastern part of Hungary, a small town called Nyíregyháza. And I was moving to Budapest when I was 18, so to start the university. So I did both my bachelor's and my master's here at the Semmelweis University, and I'm currently working on my PhD.
Wow, that's very impressive. A PhD, congrats.
Well, thank you. Well, don't congratulate me yet. I'm just halfway through.
You will succeed on that,
Hopefully.
I'm pretty sure. That's interesting. So for how long have you been working as a physiotherapist since you graduated? And also, could you describe us exactly from your perspective, let's just say like in 5 words or even more or less, how will you describe physiotherapy?
I was working as a physiotherapist for 7 years now. And if I have to describe physiotherapy in 5 words, well, I would say it's prevention and exercise, prevention and healing with exercise. That was exactly 5 words, I think. Prevention and healing with exercise. Yes, I managed. So I think that's the most important thing about physiotherapy, that we use active movements and we use exercises instead of medicine or crazy equipment or surgery or anything. So we try not to use serious intervention. Instead, we try to do as much natural healing as possible, and also prevention. So for me, that's what physiotherapy is about.
I do agree. I feel like physiotherapy is a very amazing, incredible field in the health science, and especially like as you mentioned, it's like natural way of healing, and not just medicine or doing these like crazy things inside the body or using something extra outside when you can
Absolutely.
Heal with your body, right?
Absolutely. That would be the point. Although, as you are in your 4th year already, I'm sure you already know about a lot of special extra features the physiotherapists can use, and I often feel that this is diverting us from our original purpose. So it's always cool to have new equipment and new techniques and, I don't know, crazier and crazier ideas to do. But I think the best thing we can do is always just to work with the body, with exercises. So I think that should be the base.
I totally agree with you, Anna. And well, now that we're talking about studies, do you mind if we go a little bit not too far in time? And could you tell us, like, what was the reason in your life when you were younger that made you decide to, okay, I want to study physiotherapy? Like, what was the main reason why?
That was actually quite a sudden decision because for years I was planning to be a physics teacher. So I came very far from that. And I remember it quite clearly because it was a really sudden turning point. Approximately a week or 2 before the deadline of application for university. So yeah, it was that sudden. I never even heard of physiotherapy before, but I had a sport injury, and due to that I had to visit a physiotherapist back in my hometown. And just after the first session I was like, this is cool, I want to do this. So I did.
Wow, that's incredible. I feel like many students that are watching this video or professionals could relate to this scenario, because I feel like many people, sometimes they don't have any idea what physiotherapy is, but once you get injured or you need to go to a physiotherapist, that's when you realize like, oh, this is so cool. Like this is what I want to do in my life. And well, I totally feel like I can relate to this scenario as well, because in my country, physiotherapy, it's kind of like a new thing, like a new career. So not everyone knows what a physiotherapist is. But once they go to a physiotherapy session, that's when they start to find out like, okay, this is exactly what a physiotherapist do. And from there, like, they decide to become one, I'm guessing.
Yeah, it's. I think actually it's a common origin story for physiotherapists. Actually, I often hear this from the Hungarian students, and it's interesting that I hear it less often from the international students. So obviously, when I meet new students, I always ask this question because I'm always interested to hear it. And for some reason, amongst the Hungarian students, for some reason, this is more frequent. And I think because many of the international students are often here not just for learning physiotherapy, but also for, you know, gaining experience in a foreign country and to get to know Hungary and stuff like that. So there's often not such a big motivation behind it, but I really hope that during their studies they grow to like it. Of course, some of the international students tell us the same origin story as well, but it just seems less frequent than amongst the Hungarian students. But, you know, it's just my observation, so it's not a scientific data.
Right. That's I feel like that could be a reality for many students, but at the same time, it's like I also don't know too many people, I will say, that they have shared their experience why they're here, especially studying physiotherapy. But just like going a little bit back to your years of study, and then like it can also give us like an advice and help us as a students. Like, what would you say were the main subjects for you, like you consider were like very important during your like formation as a physiotherapist?
Well, I'd say there's no doubt that anatomy at our first year is a crucial part, right immediately at the beginning. And of course, after that, the functional analysis of the musculoskeletal system is the next big bite. And I really believe that after you have those two, then after that, everything is set. Almost impossible not to become a physiotherapist after that. But for that, you really have to study these two subjects very, very thoroughly. And not just because they are hard and you have to pass those exams, but also because you are helping yourself a great deal if you really study these subjects well, because it will make it easier in your later years to do your subjects. And apart from these two, which are very important, I would also like to emphasize the role of physiology, because although it often seems that physiotherapy is more about mechanical things and about muscles and joints, but if we study physiology thoroughly, then it will help a lot when you have to study the cardiology and the pulmonology and these subjects, because if you understand the basics of physiology, then it's easier to know what can go wrong and how can you help with your exercises and your, I don't know, breathing exercises or renosis exercises or things like that. So maybe at the beginning, I would say these three subjects, so the anatomy, the physiology, and the functional, are the main three you have to pass and learn it well. Not just pass, learn it well if you can.
Right, yeah, not just pass, just have to learn it, especially because I do consider, well, in my point of view, like these could be very hard subjects for some students and for some people that probably when it's the first time that you face this type of subjects of anatomy, especially physiology, and when it's your first contact with the health science education, you feel like, wow, like learning all these muscles, learning all these bones, or like these systems and like small little details, it's like can be too much sometimes, like can be really too hard for some people. But I do agree, and I consider those subjects are very important, especially as you mentioned, like the functional analysis of the limbs and the body, musculoskeletal system. That's basically what I feel it's a base for us, because without that knowledge, it's like, how do you expect to work on someone else's body?
Absolutely. And I would just like to add that I always really admire the international students, that they not only meet these subjects at their first year, but also they are studying it in a foreign language. And I must say it's also hard for the Hungarian students, although they are learning it or studying it in their mother language. And many of the international students come very various places. So for most of you, English is also your second language. So studying these hard subjects in a second language, I think that's even a bigger job. And add to that anatomy and physiology as well is mostly in Latin. So yeah, there's a lot going on there. So it's a great job to do it. But you are in your fourth year, so you did it already. Good job.
I remember those days. So yeah. And well, now that we're speaking about like also subjects, was there a subject for you that you can like, did you remember if you struggle or there was like this subject that you were like, oh my God, this is hard. I'm going to stay up until like 3, 4 a.m. like studying for this final exam or...
I was never someone to stay up late to study. I rather wake up early, but yeah, definitely the anatomy. So for anatomy, I was pulling long hours, long days. When I had to study for the anatomy exam, it was just weeks and weeks of studying and studying and studying. But the same goes for the functional as well. And when the state exam comes, which you will shortly know, that was something similar. When you have that many topics to learn, and you have to know them all, and you have to know them for all your fourth year. So when you just study anatomy, it's just anatomy. But when you have to prepare your state exam, that's an entirely different story. So those were hard days.
Those were the hard days. Yeah, I know I have to go through that process eventually. And I know that it's learning, basically trying to refresh your mind. But at the same time, it's like putting 4 years of studies in just maybe 1 month, 2 months,
Absolutely.
3 months. That depends on how much time people would like to spend to prepare themselves. But I'm guessing the sooner the better.
Well, in theory, yes, but so I don't want to crush your hopes or anything, but you won't have this much time because before that you have to do your clinical practice, which consumes a lot of time. So after spending your whole morning at a clinic, well, I really admire those who after that go home and just sit down and study. I was never one of them. So I believe that when you have to do the clinical practice and when you have to study for your state exam at the same time, it sounds good, but it won't work. I mean, it didn't work for me. I'm not saying it won't work for you, but it's hard. So for me, the most fruitful times for preparing for the state exam was the month before, so directly before. I didn't have any time to do any preparation before that. So only after I finished with my clinical practices could I spend my time learning for the state exams.
I can imagine those days, how they're going to look like.
Yeah, I don't miss them.
I do totally agree. I feel like, as you mentioned, like clinical practice can be might be not like a too long time as in spending in a hospital, but at the same time, I feel like mentally you might get like tired. Like Absolutely. I don't feel, at least like myself, I don't consider to be the type of person that I wish I was, but I am not the type of person that could be like working, being in a clinic for 8 hours and then feel like, now let me try to study more. And then like, that's how my day is going to be from Monday to Friday.
Especially because for most of you, this will be as a first working experience.
Right.
And or maybe you did do some work before on in some other field, but you will find out that doing physiotherapy, especially at the first time, it's both mental but also physical work. And experiencing that for the first time is really tiring. But the good news is that you will get used to it, so it won't get to be so tiring all the time. But at the beginning, so as I remember it, my 4th year practice was deadly.
Well, we'll see next semester how it goes. It's not too far from this day. But by the way, was there like a subject? Because, I mean, everyone who's watching this video, we all know that physiotherapy, it's not just one field of physiotherapy, but we have like all these different fields. Like, for example, we have pediatrics, we have orthopedics, rheumatology, cardio, geriatrics. Was there one of these subjects when you reach, like, I think we have this in the third year, was there a point when you feel by taking these classes that you were like, oh, this is what I feel like passionate about in physiotherapy, like this is where I want to focus my work on?
It's a good question. And about it, I have to tell you that studying these subjects and doing them in real life is quite different. Mm-hmm. So when I was studying it, I really felt that rheumatology is exciting, and I also really liked traumatology. But I'm working in completely different fields, and when I was on the practices, I didn't really feel the same liking towards these subjects. So it's one thing to study something and feel that, okay, I like studying this, and it's another thing to do it actually. So for example, in the school, I didn't really like geriatric physiotherapy, but that's what I do now, and that's what I like to do now, because doing it, it's quite a different story. And the opposite with the traumatology, although I liked studying it, but doing it or seeing it in real life, I didn't really like it anymore. So you have to experience it, and then you might will be more clear about what you want to do in later years. And for that, I think for that purpose, the fourth year practice is really useful for the students, because you are going to see everything there is to see.
Right, I guess that that's the year that, I mean, like next semester when we reach that point, I feel like it's crucial for us to know Absolutely. And understand, because I feel like one thing, it's, as you mentioned, it's like you read through it, like you probably like memorize and feel like, okay, this is cool because I'm just reading through it, and like I can catch the idea like really quick. But once you have to apply that knowledge and like especially work with real patients, it's like exactly. How some people might be like, oh, I love pediatrics, but like once you start working with babies or kids, you find out like,
yep, exactly.
Babies are not so cute.
Yeah, that's a true story. Actually, for your class and a couple of classes before your year, it's now better than it was for us, because I remember that when I studied physiotherapy, the first time I actually went to clinical practice was in my third year. And your classes are visiting clinics from the first year. And I think that's very good, because we actually had some classmates who in their third year, seeing what physiotherapy is about in real life, decided to quit physiotherapy, because for 2 years they just studied it and they didn't have the real idea what's this about. So I think it's really good and really useful to do clinical practice as soon as you can. And so that's why I think it's really good that from your first year you already have the clinical practices. So that I think that's a good change in the curriculum.
I didn't have this idea that was like new to me, because when I started studying at the university, I was like, oh, wow, it's so cool because we have clinical practice from the second semester. And I feel like it was like a great opportunity for us as students, because that's how we start like interacting or like being in the medical field, see and feel like, okay, this is what a hospital looks like. This is the real job of physiotherapy it's being doing, or it's going to be taken care of. And I mean, it's sad that when you were a student, then you only had this experience until like your third year, which I consider it's like too late for being like Absolutely. To realize like, okay, I don't like what I'm practicing. And to be fair, I guess people has the right to be like, why to force yourself? I mean, it could be maybe like 1 or 2 years left of studies, but if you just like realize this is not my thing, why keep going up with that? And I feel like right now, I guess we're lucky enough to have like this opportunity to face what a patient life is in physiotherapy we do with them, because then we can start realizing like, okay, this is the right direction that I want to give to my life, a professional way, or just decided like, okay, well, it's not made for me. And it's absolutely. Okay. I mean,
it's absolutely okay. Although I have to say that this is a great thing about physiotherapy, that it is really colorful. So even though if you are a physiotherapist, or even though if you know 5 physiotherapists, maybe those 5 physiotherapists doing 6 different things. So that's a great thing that if you don't like pediatrics, you can still work in geriatric in the geriatric field. Or if you liked traumatology at one point but was working in it for 5 years and you have a burnout, then you still switch to rheumatology or orthopedics or anything, or working with athletes. So there is so many different fields inside physiotherapy that it never gets boring, and you can always refresh yourself or start anew and still remain a physiotherapist. So I find this aspect of physiotherapy really how should I say, it's hopeful. So even though if I decide later that I don't want to do what I'm doing currently, it still gives me an opportunity to remain in my field but doing something entirely different. And that's something I really like about, and I always tell this to students that they have so many opportunities with this profession. So I'm sure that everybody can find what they really like if you see it through.
I was just like thinking like it just like touched my heart in a way, because I feel I always thought since I found out what physiotherapy was, that we're like a very big world. And as you mentioned, like at some part you can be like, okay, I want to focus just in pediatric, but then if I get a burnout, then I can just like easily like switch to neurology, for example, or
Absolutely.
I get tired of neurology patients, or I just want to like give a new direction. So it's like it's changing. We don't just like stick to one type of field in physiotherapy. We are free to be like changing, especially like seeing a whole world of patients in all these different stages, or these different how would you call it, like fields,
yeah.
Like these different like fields in physiotherapy. I feel like that's a great opportunity for us to keep learning, keep moving, and keep changing, and everything's like always like new, so it's not like the same routine, like okay, Absolutely. I'm gonna be like spending like 40 years of my life working with kids, or 40 years of my life working in sports. There's always the opportunity to jump from here to there and there from there and so on. And there's something that I wanted to ask you, Anna. What are, not 5, but what would you say are the skills that you consider, based on your experience, that are the main skills a physiotherapist should have in their professional life?
That's also a very good question, and again, not an easy one. And again, it depends on which field are you working in. Because, for example, if you are working with the elderly or with kids, then I would say that one of the most important skills to have is patience towards the patient. But if you are working with athletes, then your most important skill might be to be able to motivate your athlete, or maybe to be strict with your athlete. But if you choose to work mostly with manual therapy, then obviously you have to have good manuality. So it really depends. And that comes back to this topic of the many field of physiotherapy, that although you have a lot of options, this on some level also means that you can't be good at all of them. But I would rather say you don't have to be good at all of them, because there are someone else who will be good at some other field and with some other skill. So this means, for me at least, this means that you can find your strengths, and then you can find your field when you can apply that strength. And for me, at least, when I was starting working, this was a message I would have been glad if someone would have told me, because I felt that I need to be good at this, and I need to be good at that, and I need to be up to date with every research, and I have to be the best with low back pain management, but I also should work with athletes, and so everything. And I had to spend a couple of years working to realize what is it I'm not really good at, what is it I don't have the patience for, what is it I don't really like. And when I realized all that, then it started to get clear to me that, for example, one of my main skills, I think, is that I have the patience for the elderly people. I can motivate them. So that's where I can use my skills the best. And that's where I can help the most as a physiotherapist. And not with kids, for example, because I don't have the good skills for them. This question about the skills and the fields, I think, is quite interconnected. And I think it's very important to realize it for us that we don't have to be good at everything. And we have to do what we like and what we're good at. And then it will lead to a much more satisfactory professional life, I think.
That's very good to hear and good to know, especially for all those people that are watching this video. They can get an idea of what to expect. And at the same time, as you mentioned, it's like you don't have to be perfect in all the aspects in physiotherapy as long as you're passionate, I guess. Or as you mentioned that, for example, you work with your geriatric patients. So patience, it's one of your main skills. And probably there could be someone that they're not that patient person, I will say. So of course they might not see this as the best option to go to in the professional ways of speaking. So that's, once again, it takes me back to the same situation that it's physiotherapy. It's like a big world, I will say, in the health science field, that you don't have to just stick in this. It's, for example, there could be someone that's not good at sports. And of course, if you don't like sports, why would you choose to work with athletes? Or you might like to have more a holistic or more patience or more relaxing or more a calm day environment, and you could choose. That's my perspective. Sorry, that's maybe you can work in the geriatric field. I will say that's
perspective. So.
Based on your skills and of course the things that you like or feel passionate about. I guess that's what gives you a direction of, this is where I want to kind of specialize myself as a physiotherapist. And since we're talking about fields and skills and professions, could you tell us a little bit about your work? Your professional way that you do, because some of us, majority, I will say, we know you as a teacher, so we don't know what other things you would like to share with us about your professional work, and probably what your normal work look like regarding school and what comes after or before coming to classes.
That's a question I have a very long and complicated answer to. So since a couple of years, I am working as a freelancer, which means I don't have one regular job. I don't have an employee. I don't work at one place for 40 hours a week. But instead, I work, as you know, a couple of hours a week at the university as a teacher. But a couple of hours a week, I work at an elderly care facility. And I also work at a gym. Where I work as a group fitness instructor and personal trainer, but I do personal training for those who has some musculoskeletal problems. So although I work as a personal trainer, but I rather use my side of physiotherapist. I'm not sure about where that side starts and where the personal trainer ends. So that's another story. But the thing is that every day of me is looking different. So for example, maybe on Monday I start with the elderly at the elderly care facility, but then I head over to the gym to do individual trainings and then group fitness sessions. Or my Tuesday is usually full with the university teaching. Or on Wednesday, again, I start with the elderly, but then I head to the university to teach again. So every day is a bit different. But I enjoy this actually, although it requires from me a lot more organization. But I really like organizing my own time, and this allows me to give me more free time for my hobbies and also to do my PhD research, because I need time for that as well. So I like this kind of flexibility of my days.
That's, I mean, like it sounds that you have a busy week, to be honest, but
it's not that terrible as it sounds. So totally, I'm not working more than I would if I would have one full-time job. So I'm working approximately the same hours. I just need more headspace to think about when to go where. I couldn't live without my calendar because I just wouldn't know where I am right now and where should I go and what should I do. So I really dependent on my calendar all the time.
But also, I guess at the same time, I consider it's really cool, this all these different activities that you mentioned that you do, once again going back to what a physiotherapist do, because you don't just like stick I work in this hospital, or I work at this clinic, or I'm a teacher, like full-time in any of these things. So I think that's why it's like so cool, because you don't fall in the monotony of, I just go, like, as you mentioned, like a 40 hours working in an office, for example, or like doctors that can always have to be in the hospital because that's where they need them, you know? But you mentioned that you do all these incredible things, so your week may sound busy, but at the same time you have the freedom of choosing.
Absolutely.
Okay, now I can go from here, I can go from there, and jumping.
Absolutely. And I really enjoy it this way, because although I mentioned I really like working with the elderly, but I also know from my previous experience when I was working in a hospital that if I would do this full time, then it would be much more easy to burn out, and it would be much more easy to lose your patience towards the patient. And we don't want that. So for me, at least, and I'm not saying this is a good lifestyle for everyone, but for me, this kind of lifestyle helps me to remain patient towards the patients, to remain patient towards the students, because they, also sometimes require patience, and to also remain active at the gym. So for me, to be able to work in these different fields, this enables me to maybe to be the most active and the most positive in all these fields. And I feel if I would just stick to one of these in a bigger hour, then it would be worse for me. So for me, this is the good lifestyle for now. But as we already discussed, it can change anytime, because we have the opportunity to do anything in physiotherapy.
That sounds really cool. I mean, I consider that you have this opportunity of being flexible yourself, and it's really important that right now you have this balance. That's how I see that you stay active at the same time. I mean, like, because exercise, it's very important for everyone. So you can cover this by doing the gym part of the job that you like to do, but at the same time you are like working and not working out.
This was my biggest motivation to be a fitness trainer. Actually, I'm kind of a lazy person. And so I need to give a lot of activities to myself. I need to give a lot of commitments to myself. Mm-hmm. So I don't just sit on the couch and watch TV. And so that's why I decided, okay, if my job would be to do fitness, then I should stay active. So I sort of force myself to do the activity, because I'm the teacher, so I have to be there. That was how it began. Obviously, I love doing exercises, and I don't have to force myself to go to the gym now just to work out myself. But this is how it started. And I think, again, this can be a good motivation for future physiotherapists, that this is not a desk job. You can, you have to go from one place to another. If you're working, even if you're working in just one hospital, you are visiting one bed after the other. So you are constantly on the move. You are doing exercises with patients. You are lifting up patients, helping them from the bed to the chair, from the chair to the bed. So you are always on the move. And well, just as a lifestyle, I think that's already better than just sit down all day. And but if you are doing group exercises, then again you have to stay active. So there's a lot of good points apart just the flexibility and the colorfulness of this job. I also think that this kind of career really can help yourself to stay healthy and to stay active, which I think is a must as a physiotherapist, because you cannot really give advice about being active and healthy to a patient if you yourself is not.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. That's why I guess we all, so far, we like to, as students, we like to stay active, and we try to do our best at the same time, because balancing the lifestyle between student and having extra activities, I will say sometimes it's not quite fixable.
I would say it's very hard. I also remember when I really started to work out and really got into fitness, it was when I started the university, and I did my group fitness instructor course somewhere in the middle of it, because I really felt that after sitting so many hours studying, and not just studying for myself, but also sitting at the university in those terribly uncomfortable chairs and listening long hours of lectures, I really felt the need to do something, some exercise. And this is how I got into fitness. And it was really hard at the beginning to balance this, that I have to study, I have to be on class, but I also want to move, and I also want to do something for my health, because I sit on the lecture and I learn that I should move, but I'm sitting here, so how can I move? So there's a bit of a contradiction there. So yeah, being a physiotherapy student is not the most healthy thing on that 4 year, but after that you can use your knowledge, and you can use your career to get better and be healthier. And I can say this as maybe a motivation, but I think I'm in a much better shape and physical condition and in general health than when I was a physiotherapy student. So I think getting older in this sense is good thing.
Yeah, I feel like once you start finding that balance in your life, that's when you make it from there. Like you take it from, okay, I feel like my time management skills are improving. So that's where you feel like it's easier, I will say, to start doing these things, plus keep adding ons and ons. But Anna, could you tell us what are the things that you enjoy the most as a physiotherapist so far?
I really enjoy teaching. So that's definitely one of the biggest plus sides on the physiotherapy. And I also, as I already mentioned, I really like working with the elderly, but what I think is the best is when these two words colliding, when I have the clinical practice at the elderly care facility. So that's teaching and that's treating the elderly, but together. And that can be really interesting. And also most often, it's really heartwarming because although my elderly patients obviously don't really speak English, the students don't really speak Hungarian, so theoretically they couldn't communicate at all, and still somehow they find a way towards each other, and then it will be, I don't know, just a lovely scene where everybody is emotional and happy. So I think that those moments are one of the best in my career or in my whole week when I just have to pick from all these different jobs. Then the clinical practices at the elderly care facility where I work, those are the best.
That sounds really heartwarming. I will say that. I feel like, as you say, you're teaching, but you feel like you're changing people's life in a way, and at the same time.
Well, it sounds big words, but yeah, maybe. I don't
Probably.
know.
I mean, you never know how other can take it. I mean,
true.
But I would like to ask you, how do you consider physiotherapy has an impact in people's life?
I would say it definitely has a big impact. Obviously, again, it depends on the patient, it depends on the field, but you can't deny the big impact of physiotherapy in someone's life who, for example, had some injury and then they got rehabilitation. But also, it's a really big impact for a child if the child was born with some, I don't know, perinatal problems and the physiotherapist helps them to develop in a better way. But it also, although we might not achieve big results, but I feel that for my patients in the elderly care facility, it's a big impact that they can just move for 10 or 15 minutes or however many they can. So although they don't expect much from it, but it's still a program for them and they wait for it and it cheers them up. So I think physiotherapy really affects everyone who receives it. Well, just me as a problem. It really affected my life to receive physiotherapy when I had this sport injury and now I'm here. So I think it's really impactful for everyone.
Thank you, Anna, for sharing those thoughts of you that you have from about physiotherapy, and that gives you also like a better perspective at the same time of how much impact physiotherapy could really have in other people's life. Because sometimes people might think that it's just like the easiest thing, or at the same time, I feel like sometimes, well, not myself, but sometimes physiotherapists, they might think they're just like doing their work, but I guess in like this, sometimes you can see in patients how much happy they get. Like, even though like probably like if they were not able to move a one finger, and then people could be like, oh, well, he's just moving one finger, but it's because of you, I guess.
Now you mention it, I also didn't think about this way since before you asked. So yeah, you probably right. Most physiotherapists, I don't think they, thinking about how great what they do, because we don't, that's what our job. So obviously we are doing it. But so thank you for the question, because it also helped me to think about these results, and well, it feels good.
Yeah, it's always good to question how much impact are we doing with what we're doing in other people's life. And we've been talking really good things so far, but I hate to be a negative person, but has there been like a challenge during your work experience that you were like, oh, wow, like this is being too much for myself, or I just feel like it's just not so good?
Yeah, that's also a very important question, although I almost answered it already when I was talking about that you have to realize what are you good at, what are you not so good at, what do you have the patience for and what not. And as I mentioned, it took me quite a couple of years to realize these things. And at the beginning of my career, I was working at a private clinic where I had a lot of patients, a lot of 1 hour long physiotherapy, like all day. And it's a cool thing to work at a private clinic, especially at first. You really can be influenced by the clean environment, by the coolness of it, by the shininess, especially compared to your clinical practice experiences in Hungarian hospitals might be, experiencing a private clinic might feel a step up. And I really wanted to believe that I also feel this way, but I didn't. And I felt I'm struggling with this kind of job because treating people for a full hour and then immediately comes another, and they pay a lot for the clinic, not for yourself, but for the clinic. So they have different expectations because they kind of feel like they bought a product. So why isn't it good already? Why isn't it better? Why does it still hurt? For me, it felt like I'm selling a service at a price, and the patient often felt like, okay, I paid the price, so I want results immediately. But physiotherapy is not that. Physiotherapy is hard work for the patient as well. And well, I think when there's a lot of money involved, then I don't know, this balance is a bit tilted. So for me, this wasn't a good environment. And but I'm not saying this is not a good environment. I'm just saying it wasn't for me a good environment, because I have many classmates who are already doing their own private clinic and they are managing it beautifully, and they don't have a problem with giving this service with confidence and with strictness, because you also have to be strict that, yeah, although you paid for the service, but you have to do the work because physiotherapy is about your work. So those who have the good personality for this, for them, this is a great job. And I also wanted it to be a great job for me, but it wasn't. And so I needed a lot of time to realize that I don't feel good in an environment like this. I feel better with just the elderly and just maybe just having short walks with no money involved at all, but everybody is just happier. So for me, this is best. And it was hard for me to realize that that other kind of job is not for me. But when I did realize it, everything was better.
Thank you for sharing. Yeah, I feel like, as you mentioned, the same, because I consider that physiotherapy should be a very human-centered type of health science, not service, but like type of health science that you provide knowledge to the patient, and of course you apply your knowledge to them. But it's not like, for example, like doctors, that you see a patient, let's just say, every once in a month, compared to physiotherapy, that you have to have like this human-centered mindset. Because, of course, I mean, like, we need money to eat and we need the money for sustaining ourselves. Yeah, I'm not saying
I don't want money, but, you know.
No, but that's the point that I was going. Like, sometimes people might think that physiotherapy is going to make you the richest person in the world. It could happen to some people. Like, it could happen. But for some others, sometimes could be more fulfilled the way that you're, like, changing people's life, especially, like, patients, and depending on the stage or the condition that they could be suffering, and they could feel like very grateful, and like just by using that change or just seeing how much impact your work it's been doing in them, I feel like that's more fulfilled than getting 50 euros, for example.
Yep, absolutely. Nowadays, I don't see any money from my patients, because I'm only get paid through the gym, through the elderly care facility. So between my patients and I, there's no money exchange. And for me, this is a lot better. And it doesn't mean that they don't pay for it. It doesn't mean I don't receive the payment, but it's still not this service feel that now I bought physiotherapy, so now I want to feel better. And this is, I think, very important, not just in this financial aspect, but also from how you communicate towards your patients and what you offer them. Because as at the beginning of this talk, we mentioned the fancier and fancier techniques and the wonder equipment and stuff. And many people expect during physiotherapy to just lie passively and let the physiotherapist do something on you and then live healthy. But that's not how it works. So even though if you work with manual therapy, even though if you use some equipment, the base is still exercise. The base is still movement. But many people don't really like to hear that. And they don't really like getting homework. So this is where I felt that money was in the way. So they pay me a lot of money, and I give a lot of instructions, and I'm strict, and I'm telling you it's your fault that it's not better because you don't do what I asked. And so it was a weird a weird relationship. So now I don't see any money. This way I feel more confident about being strict and expect things from the patient to do for themselves. And but this is just my own issue. So if you can handle this financial barrier between your patients and yourself, then you can be a wonderful physiotherapist at a private clinic. But still, then you have to somehow choose your patients. I know this sounds weird. And in the long term, you don't even have to choose them because you will find each other. Because if you don't like the patient, then that physiotherapy won't really work.
Yeah,
if the patient doesn't like you, it also won't work. So in the end, you will find patients who like you, who like you and you like them. And then it will work much easier. And then you will find those patients who trust you, and you can tell them that you have to do these exercises and you have to drink a lot of water, and you have to try stand up every hour from your desk. And so you can give not just the physiotherapy homework, but also some lifestyle advice. And if you chose your patients carefully and well, and they chose you carefully and well in return, then this will be a really good work together, and it will give good results. But for that, you have to be the leader in this relationship when you tell the patient that no, physiotherapy is not about massage, no, physiotherapy is not about just lying passively while I'm doing manual therapy. Physiotherapy is you doing active work for yourself and for you to get involved in your therapy. And in this aspect, I think education is very important. So you as a physiotherapist really have to educate your patients. Why are you doing this? Why are you asking that? Why is regular exercise important? And here we get back to the part that if you're saying that you should exercise regularly and you don't do it as the physiotherapist, then you won't be believable. It won't be, it won't seem trustworthy. So you have to live the part, what you teach.
Yeah, I totally agree. I feel like that's true, and that should apply for every person that works in the health science field. Like, it's
absolutely,
as a patient, like if you go see whoever professional in the health science and what the profession is doesn't fit the person, it's like, is this the right person that's gonna change my life?
Yeah.
It's like you start like thinking from the patient's perspective. And yeah, I totally understand the part that sometimes it's funny for me because I thought that this was my idea based on, I came from Mexico, so people, especially patients, they expect that I'm paying for this service. I mean, I'm paying for a physiotherapy session, but I'm expecting you that I come here maybe twice a week and I'm not doing anything outside home, but I'm expecting you to heal me, complete. It's like, come on, guys, you guys give us homework or like exercises for the patients to do at home, because physiotherapy, as you mentioned, it's based on exercise, based on movement, motion, and it's not just like I go here and expect that magic wizard is going to heal you up from one day to another. So
absolutely, but I think we can't blame this all on patients. Actually, the view of Western medicine is really about taking a pill and everything will be better. And I think, patients also, you this, because if you just watch TV, every advertise is about some pills. And and if you see this constantly, then of course you think that there's a pill for everything. But that's why we use the expression that exercise is medicine. So if we would just write down how many things exercise can help you with, and you would just see the list, that you would feel, okay, I want to take that pill, but it's just not a pill. You just have to do the part. But with that, a good physiotherapist with good communication skills and educational skills, I really think that you can help a patient understand the importance of this, and that can really potentially change someone's life.
You just said a phrase that I really, really loved, which is exercise is medicine. And that's something that I found out. I will be lying if I say that I had always lived based on that quote or based on that phrase. But as I've been studying physiotherapy, that's when I started realizing how important exercise is for life. And it's not just about like moving or just being trying to have a fit body, but it's most about like all the benefits that doing exercise can give to your body, and not just like musculoskeletal speaking. It's also in the brain, it's also in your self-esteem, it's also in every human bubble, like in all this human sphere, that if someone looks at all the benefits, they will be like, okay, yeah, I want to take this pill because I want to have these, I want to be happy, I want to get fit, I want to stay young, I want to be proactive, I want to be very happy person. But it's not just a pill that you take, but it's something that you have to do on your own. And to be honest, sometimes I feel like exercise, for some people, can be seen that something that can be hard to do. But once you start finding the motivation in it and you start seeing small results from like baby steps until like you reach out like very big steps during how much motivated you can be in doing exercises or how much active your life can change, that's when you start feeling like, I love this pill.
Yeah, absolutely. And because of the importance of regular exercise and physical fitness, this was one of the main reasons I also did the personal trainer course. And as I mentioned, it's one of my answers. I don't really know where my physiotherapist side ends and where my personal trainer side begins, because, and I don't even think there should be such a distinction, because both of them are about exercise and the benefit of moving regularly. So I really think that healthcare in general should be a bit more open towards fitness, because the fitness field is really mostly about prevention. Although I have to admit that in the fitness field there are some not so healthy routines and not so healthy side of the fitness field, but still I think if we would put more emphasis on the medical fitness, then it would really take off a lot of weight from the healthcare system, because most of our patients, let's be honest, are visiting us because of lifestyle problems. So if someone has a low back pain, they don't necessarily need a physiotherapist immediately. They just need to start moving, maybe with a personal trainer. So a good preventive personal trainer can be just as much help as a physiotherapist in these problems. And also, obviously, there are those problems who definitely requires a physiotherapist, like something is broken or after a surgery or a stroke or something. But these are actually the minority of the patients. Most patients are simply visiting a physiotherapist because they don't move enough, or they move but not in a correct way. But for these problems, just really visiting a personal trainer might be enough. And for that reason, I really think it would be beneficial to work a little bit more closely with the fitness field from the healthcare.
Exactly. I feel like, as you mentioned, prevention, it's a very important thing, because of course there are like congenital situations or like disease that you cannot like prevent for them to happen. But once you have like a very lifestyle, or like you just don't really are careful, like just don't fully take care of yourself call it like on diet, call it like on doing exercise, call it on every aspect of your lifestyle. If you don't prevent things to happen, then it's like, now it can be like too late. And that's when they come over here from this side. Majority of the time, I will say that prevention could be a really important thing.
Well, it's always easier to prevent things than to treat them. So that I think we should put the main emphasis on. And actually, that's why I'm really happy about being both a trainer and a physiotherapist. And I always recommend to physiotherapists to do some fitness related course as well, because it really broadens our horizon and it gives access to more people. And I mean this, it's not like we need more patients to treat or anything, but I think people, so the people who are contacting me as a trainer, they are their motivation is different from those who are contacting me as a physiotherapist, and I really, and the problem might be the same. And I really enjoyed those patients, or shouldn't I shouldn't even say patients, clients. I really enjoy working with those clients who are contacting me as a fitness trainer or a personal trainer, because although they might contacting me for the same reason, for example, that they have a low back pain, but their approach is different. They want to train, they want to be active about it. Whereas those who contacting me as a physiotherapist, they often want some more passive approach. And that's why I always say to students as well that study something in the fitness field as well, because you will have a different mindset about things, and you might be able to motivate people differently and in a more healthy way. And I think it's always better for a patient or a client self-awareness or self-respect that I'm not a patient, I'm a client in a gym. It's just better if you don't have this feeling of illness around you. So it's just a better motivation to go to the gym than to visit a physiotherapist for the same reason.
Anna, so far you have shared with us like very incredible things. Like you are working on your PhD, you're a teacher, you're a personal trainer, you're also working with geriatric patients, but what do you consider has been your biggest achievement until this day?
To answer that, again, I will circle back to the different fields, but because I really feel that the achievement is based on the opinion of the client. So for me, the biggest achievement is what makes the client the happier. And it might not sound a big achievement if I say that I find my biggest achievement, I think, is that with one client in the elderly care facility, we were able to go to the toilet and sit down and stand up. It doesn't sound like a big achievement, but it is for the patient. So then that's the biggest achievement. But I also could say as someone from personal training who was able to, I don't know, do a push-up for the first time. For them, that is a big achievement, and they are feeling happy about it. So I think it's always depending on the perspective of the client. How happy does that achievement make them? And for me, it's depending on this.
Yeah, I feel like this question can be a tricky and a hard one because, as you mentioned, you've been working in different fields, and at the same time, the big achievement for someone cannot seem like a big achievement to someone else's, but you see it and you feel it and you feel like grateful for what you're doing. And especially like, I feel like with no doubts, you really feel appreciated by your patients / clients in everything that you've been doing. And especially they know the results and they know how much you've been changing their life as a physiotherapist. And just to finish with this episode, Anna, what will be your advice for students, especially here at Semmelweis, that's studying physiotherapy, either the internationals and the Hungarian students?
Well, it's nothing original. study, study a lot. Actually, I had a similar question just a couple of days ago from a first year student. He asked me some tips and advices about studying anatomy. And well, in that conversation, I realized that we are a different generation, because I was starting to tell him about colorful tables and cards and I don't know what, when he was talking about videos and mobile apps and things. And then, yeah, at that moment, I realized that I didn't even have a smartphone until my finishing year at the university. And so, but I was thinking, but you know, I'm not an expert in study methodology, but I was thinking that it might be useful to step a little bit away from devices and try to study a bit offline, but again, I'm not sure because I don't really have comparison because I always studied offline because I didn't have other opportunities back then. But for me, writing things with my hands and seeing things on paper, drawing tables, color things, for me, this always helped more. And I just feel, but it might be, you know, the old lady speaking of me, that I feel this, that always looking at videos, looking at moving objects and colorful applications and stuff might be a bit distracting from actually learning what you want to learn, actually memorizing things. So it's not even a real advice, it's just a question that maybe you can try and see if it works for you.
Well, I completely agree. Like, I came from a country where technology was not like the biggest thing, I will say, that we used when I was studying, and then that's why I'm basically I'm old school guy too as well. Like, I have my notebook, and I could tell because I've been trying to switch from writing notes in my notebook or like reading and like post-it and colors and drawings and things like that, and then trying to just like watch videos. I feel it like also more distracting, or like trying to just go by, especially on the computer. Like, I wear glasses, so for me it's like more tiring doing that way. But I'm guessing that for some people one thing could be working better than the other.
Exactly. So that's why I'm just putting this out there as an idea, because then I realized that maybe for those who are first year students now, this doesn't even seem an option, you know, just to learn on paper. So yeah, that was an interesting experience for me, just to talk about it and realize how differently we are seeing studying as a whole thing. And maybe my other advice would be, and again, this is a basic advice, it's not even an advice, technically it's a requirement, go to classes. That helps a lot. Because when you are actually there, half the things you can already remember if it's a good lecture or if it's a good class. When I was a teacher assistant from functional, actually, I really believe that I was a teacher assistant after I did both the A, B and C of the functional. And in the B and C part, you basically have to learn the same topics. And I really felt that I only was comfortable with the topics in reality when I was explaining them to other students as a teaching assistant. Although I was passing, obviously, the semesters before, but when I just had to put it in my head and memorize it, I didn't feel comfortable about the knowledge. So being a teacher assistant helped me really understand the knowledge. So that's why I say maybe explaining things to each other and learning together can help. But apart from that, I really advise being a teaching assistant or doing TDK work. TDK is the Student Scientific Association. So these additional school activities might seem tiresome, but they are really helping to, you know, broaden your horizon and be a bit more active during your school years.
Well, thank you very much, Anna, for sharing all these ideas and like all the comments. We really appreciate it. We're reaching at the end of this episode. I truly feel honored to having you
thank you very
with
much.
us. Because now, especially we people who's watching this video and students can get like a better idea of what physiotherapy could look like in the future years and what you can do and how you can, you know, like keep developing and increasing your knowledge yourself. And is there anything that you would like to add for us?
Well, I just would like to thank you for the invitation. It's it's also an honor to be here, and thank you for listening to my advices. I hope that anything I said might be useful for future or students in general, and I'm really thanking you for inviting me.
Yes, I definitely feel like many people is gonna find everything that you shared with us today very useful for their life, and not just as a student, but for everyone that's out there. It could be a patient, could be another physiotherapist, could be someone that it's interesting in physiotherapy. Maybe they can be like, oh wow, now I have a better perspective, and especially like start thinking about the future of our own bodies. Well, that's it for today, guys. Thank you for watching this video. I hope you like it, and don't forget to share and subscribe, and feel free to share with everyone that you know and feels interested about physiotherapy.
Thank you.
Yeah, I definitely feel like everyone... I just went blank, sorry. Oh my god, so this is like so hard.
Any bloopers as well.
Professor of Semmelweis. Today we're very honored to present